Mutual Fund. Sandeep, good morning. Thank you for joining us. All-time high in November or December or in Jan? What is your sense?
Nikunj, if you can recollect, I used to talk about, that you will see a lifetime high as early in current year itself, and maybe as early as current calendar years. Okay, so I think we are very close to that event which is about to unfold. Because if you really look at in last many months, also if you look at even last 2 months or 3 months also, the narrative is very negative. Okay, so the narrative is extremely pessimism where data analytics is not. Okay, and where that's the way even last time I talked about that US market, particularly Nasdaq and the technology stocks, the S&P can give you as high as 15-20%. We've already seen nearly 10% move in S&P and still not peaked out. So I think the way we look at is that one has to take advantage of this extreme volatility which is prevailing in the market. So extreme panic, one should be buyer, and extreme euphoric move, one should be pulling down the exposure. That's the best way you can play in this uncertain times.
Then, where are you locking your gains and where are you picking bargains? Where is euphoria in this market and where is value in this market?
So if you really look at, I will not look at just because there's no classic euphoria as of now. Yes, we have seen some euphoria happening. Okay, and maybe euphoria will be relatively more strong word if I have to look at more from Indian context. I don't think there is any signs of euphoria. What we have seen in September 2021 in US, there is no. We are not even close to that mark, which means the long-term top is still not made and still far away. And therefore, we cannot say there is any signs of euphoria. Yes, we have seen some amount of euphoria sometime in 2021 in small cap, and then it's corrected. Currently, if I have to talk about, we can say not euphoria, good amount of over ownerships are there in certain names where consensus are getting built. Those are the names which I am slightly worried and skeptical that everybody likes it and it's a consensus trade. There's many such names without getting into stock specific. Those are the area one should be avoided.
Just looking at the kind of returns as well that we've seen within the entire infrastructure space as a whole, the kind of comeback that we're seeing in ordering activity picking up, the overall manufacturing as well looking very promising now for India. Do you think that investors would be best placed to park their money within the entire infrastructure capital goods pocket?
We have been very constructive for more than a year now about the capital good industrial. Now, even I'll say infrastructure stocks also looks very good. The entire manufacturing thesis, okay. And one should not look for that just 1 quarter or 1 year view perspective. My larger thesis is this is a decades of opportunity for India. And manufacturing is the space which one has to capitalize. So you're talking about China plus or Europe plus, I see Japan plus one also will also very soon. So I think India will emerge as a very serious manufacturing capability from a longer term perspective. It takes time. So something is not going to happen tomorrow morning. But if somebody has a vision from a longer term perspective, I think that's a space one should capitalize.
Sandeep, I recall the last time we were chatting with you, you were saying that A, FMCG looks like it's going to give decent returns, and B, what really stood out was that pharma can actually turn, but you said that the fundamental signal is still lagging. One has seen that completely reverse with the likes of a Cipla, Sun Pharma, which are sitting at all-time highs. What about the rest of the pack? When does that revive?
So if you ask me from a medium-term perspective, pharma sector definitely looks good. Purely from the sector point of view, it has reached that most neglected zone, which we generally look forward from. It has all behavior signs that one should look for the sector as opportunity. But the challenge comes, which I also talked about last time, purely from the numbers perspective, from the fundamental data points is not very encouraging. So maybe the ideal approach is that you can park money in some of the so-called large caps names on relatively stable names. They may not give you extraordinary alpha from the current level, but it gives you satisfaction that you are part of that rally, because we are difficult to figure out which are the names to participate given the very weak earnings which we have seen from this company, and there is no visibility even from the forward point of view. If you're looking at for next 2 quarter perspective, 3 quarter perspective, that sort of visibility is also not there. So we like that space, but we are not very clear in terms of stock selection apart from one or two names.
So, Sandeep Tandon, while we also discuss and figure out when we're going to see that all-time high that all of us are waiting for, it's a matter of maybe a few days, things are looking like it. Of course, if the US Fed doesn't spoil the party. Nikunj on top of the show is making a very pertinent point, and that is also that we are seeing and approaching a new all-time high without relying too much on the bank nifty. But even if we were to look at the bank nifty, the powerhouse, the elephant, HDFC, do you think its time has finally come?
So I think this is the point which I was making in the beginning. You have to identify a certain pocket within the banking where over ownership is there. So all those knowing where over ownership has speaking out, that is the area one can look to exit and look for opportunity like these HDFC twins. Where we have seen good amount of underperformance in last 3 years. We have seen neglected. They have been trading in the neglected zone for a longer period of time because these were the largely institutional FIS favorite, and we have seen the returns of FIS. So that is helping HDFC twins to come back. But as a longer term thesis, we remain very constructive on the banking as a space. But the only challenge we have seen a good euphoric, I'll not use the word euphoric, we have seen a good up move. So there's a high possibility that you might see a correction in consolidation, the broader market and banking in particular, and then you see banking and the market will start recovering. So you have to give some time because it has rallied significantly in last maybe few weeks.
Sandeep, let's understand the underlying bent of the valuations. The underlying bent of the valuation is that we are trading at least at a 30 to 50% premium to historical averages. Next 2 to 3 quarters, great growth is not going to be splendid. While banking sector will outperform, there are challenges for IT, there are challenges for metal, there are challenges for commodity companies. So given that for next 2 or 3 quarters we are not in for bumper earnings or big margin expansion, and markets are already trading at a premium, do you think markets are unlikely to continue this upward march and this upward trajectory?
So, Nikunj, we look at market both from absolute and relative basis. In absolute basis, I agree, Indian valuations are relatively stretched, given the relative what is happening in the global markets. But you have to look at the growth which Indian companies or the clear growth which is visible both in absolute terms and relative terms. So that gives us an edge. See, ultimately, money shift from a non-performing to performing markets or stocks. So I think that is the site which we have to look at, when the whole world underperforms market for a longer term perspective. Money is bound to shift to those countries or those markets where outperformance is visible, the earning stability is much better. I'm not saying extraordinary growth. Even at least in India, earning visibility is far superior, both from the GDP point of view as the corporate one. So both on absolute and relative, when we combine, then India still looks very attractive. And I still believe, I'm not ruling out you will see new high as maybe this month also. That's the way market texture is getting built.
Always great to have you on the show, and I'm sure once we clock this last lap of 500 points and we do make it to an all-time high, we're going to chat again.
Thank you.